Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on an overreaction Monday after the Steelers took a tough loss to the Seattle Seahawks at home in their home opener yesterday afternoon. And through 2 weeks, guys, we have to be honest with ourselves. It hasn't been good enough, all right? So today we're going to be talking about some of the things that I'm seeing on the Steelers film, what my suggestions are for the Steelers to potentially fix those issues that we are seeing in the run defense, up front on the offensive line, in the offense, all the things that we are seeing. That's going to be in our news and rumors segment today. We'll also be talking about some lucky breaks that the Steelers have caught. Time to start moving into week 3 and start preparing for this very important game versus Drake Maye, Mike Vrabel, and the New England Patriots in Foxborough. So before we get into the content today, spam those me's down there in the comment section. I want to see who the real ones are down there in the comment section to start today's show. We got 73 people watching at the top of today's show. We got Gary Frank, Christopher Domingo, Eugene Payne, I Drop Sounds. We got Chuck Dugan. We've got Czar Craig. We got Donna Elliott, my lovely fiance Cassie Voth is here. We got Chuck Dugan. We've got Rez. We've got Dustin Gray, Drake Johnson. We've got Joe. We've got Drake, Eric. We got Eric Luke or Anthony Luke. We got Dustin Gray. Got Carl Johnson. We got Anthony. Yes, no, Evans. We've got I Drop Sounds. We've got Eugene Payne, Joe, Half Man Amazing, Kenneth Frick, Michael, Madden God. We got Jack Hay, Bob, Thunder Goose, Christopher Domingo. We've got Heath Price. We got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to get things going here, man. I can't wait to get into our content today. But let's bring on our producer here. Mr. Ponzi is with us. Producer Ponzi, what is your concern level for the Steelers defense after, technically they didn't surrender 30-plus points yesterday. Their special teams handed Seattle 7 points, so they gave up 24 yesterday, 32 against the Jets in week 1. And that offense for the Jets did not look good against the Buffalo Bills yesterday either. So what is your concern level here for this defense that was supposed to be really, really freaking good heading into this year?
I think I'm at a 6 right now, especially concerned for the run defense. Just because, on third down and goal, Kenneth Walker running in for a 19-yard, 20-yard touchdown, basically kind of to seal the game. And that run defense look is not really been impressive in these first 2 weeks, especially against the Jets. And, I had that Bills game be a little bit closer, I would be feeling a little bit more in the 4 or 5 because I was like, oh, maybe the Jets are just good. Maybe they're good this year. But the Jets looking as bad as they did Sunday was not very good for this Steelers defense. So I really think that they could fix it. But right now I'm leaning more towards a 6.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly things that need to be fixed, all right? I think if you're sitting here saying everything is good and everything is grand, like, by the way, Russell Wilson would be doing that right now. Like, if we had Russell Wilson as our quarterback, we'd be like, yeah, guys, we're kings, we're good, yeah. And, like, the thing that I like about having Aaron Rodgers, Ponzi, is Rodgers isn't going to be afraid to go to the other side of the locker room there with the defense and say, hey, we got to get our shit right, all right? And I'm sure Rodgers himself is probably not even just watching the offensive film. He's probably watching the defensive film, and he's probably, maybe even talking with Coach T, Coach Austin, these guys that, maybe that he sees something where like, hey, we got to do this better, or we got to try this schematic switch. Having a guy that's as smart when it comes to the game of football as Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. It's more benefits than just him playing quarterback for you, right? He can help the entire football team with his football acumen, and he's also the type of leader that's not going to let this kind of shit slide. So I'm really hoping that the Steelers can kind of figure out some of the switches they need to make. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I would personally do if I were the Steelers defensive coordinator to help this run defense out. I know there's a lot of people saying, why even bother coming up with solutions? Mike Tomlin and Terrell Lawson are not going to change their ways. And that's very possible. Maybe Tomlin goes up there at the podium tomorrow and says, we're doing everything exactly the same. And if that's the case, I will criticize him for it. But, we've seen, I think we saw last year, Ponzi, that you can be a completely different football team in December and January than you are in September. Last year, the Steelers defense had one of the best opening months of any team in football in NFL history last year. I mean, like, the points they were giving up less than 17 points a game in the first 4 games of the year. They were absolutely lights out. And towards the end of the season, they were giving up like 30 points a game, right? So you can be completely different, and the ebbs and flows of a season. This Steelers defense still has a lot of talent on it. This team still has a lot of ability on it. And we saw this kind of last year with Baltimore, Ponzi. Like, that Baltimore defense was not in a good place midway through the season. Then they shifted some pieces around, and all of a sudden the puzzle pieces fit together. And down the stretch, they were like the best defense in the league, maybe outside of the Eagles. So, sometimes it's about shifting some things. Sometimes it's about doing something a little bit different schematically. I do believe that there's enough talent on this defense to make it work, but the onus really is on Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin to figure out how to use these puzzle pieces to kind of put together the whole picture.
And, we've seen the teams, get off to slow starts and then go on to win the Super Bowl.
We saw that with the Eagles last year. They started the year 2-2. They almost lost to the Saints in those first 4 weeks. Jalen Hurts was playing terrible football those first 4 weeks, and they come out of that bye week, and they don't lose another game the rest of the way. And by the way, they still haven't lost a game where Jalen Hurts has started and finished a football game. So they found a winning formula after a really slow start. And obviously the Steelers are hoping that they can do the same, all right? So anybody saying the season's over or they have no chance of turning it around on defense, I just don't know if that's fair to the level of talent that exists on this Steelers defensive roster. And I do believe that if you make a couple switches here, things will and can get better in the weeks to come. Hopefully Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin can get their heads out of their asses here over the next several weeks. If you guys want to donate to the channel, guys, you got a comment that you want to get on the show today, if you have a question that you want me and Ponzi to answer today, guys can donate to the show via Super Chat, and we'll make sure to put you up on screen. If we can get to $100 in donations today, we will give away one of these Steelers Talk channel hats and give away a Hat Club membership. Ponzi's got his hat right there. $5 gets you a raffle ticket. $10 gets you 3 raffle tickets. $20 gets you 10 tickets plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong. $50 if you don't want to deal with a raffle and you just want to buy a hat for yourself, and you don't have to want to deal with the raffle. You can just buy one for $50 or $250 total today. If we can get that as a group, we will hit the gong here on an Overreaction Monday. And if you guys want to send in your donations to Venmo or PayPal, that's at Jack-Sperry on Venmo, at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal, and we will double your raffle tickets if you send in your donations via these 2 platforms. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Certainly, it's not a requirement for people to donate to the channel, but it certainly helps us out, helps us pay for new equipment, helps us pay for new graphics, helps us pay rent, do all the things that we have to do here at Steelers Talk to keep the lights on and give you guys this content 100% free. So $2 coming in from my man Bernard Nixon. My man says, do you think Rodgers is washed or is it too soon? Listen, man, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best things about this Steelers team through the first 2 weeks. His arm talent is insane. Like, the thing that my mind goes back to here, Ponzi, is that throw that he had to Pat Freiermuth, that 55-yard absolute bomb to Freiermuth after rolling to his right, puts it right in the breadbasket, and of course Muth ends up dropping it. But like, that just goes to show you the arm talent that Aaron Rodgers still has to work with. That interception that he threw, where Calvin tips it up in the air and it's intercepted, the angle that he puts his body in to turn his hips and throw that football with a perfect spiral would have been right in the breadbasket for Muth, right in the corner of the end zone. It would have been a touchdown if Calvin just did his job and didn't try to, put his hand on the football. So, like, Aaron Rodgers' arm talent is insane. I think that he's processing pretty darn well. You can tell he's scanning the entire field. He's not missing too many open receivers within his progression. Honestly, Rodgers has been one of the better things about this Steelers offense. Now, obviously, he's not super mobile, and because of that, the offensive line, their role in the offense is greater than, say, a scrambling quarterback like a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen. But, Rodgers, I think, has shown some really good pocket movement. I think he's shown some really great arm talent. And when he's on the move, man, he can make some of the craziest throws still that you will ever see. So I think Rodgers has actually been one of the better aspects of this Steelers offense. And he threw 2 interceptions in that loss yesterday, Ponzi. I think, if the first one doesn't happen, which wasn't really his fault in my opinion, that was Calvin Austin's. And by the way, Calvin himself has said that interception was his fault. He knows that he was in the wrong there. I don't think he has the second one.
And I agree. I mean, I think that second one was kind of more garbage time.
Yeah, the second one was more you have a minute and 10 seconds left to go in the game. You have to try and push the ball down the field and get a chunk, and he just overthrew Calvin, who's a tiny receiver in a tiny window. I don't think those are the types of interceptions we're going to expect from Rodgers. I don't think he's going to have many multiple interception games. I don't think that's something that we can expect from him here in Pittsburgh. I think he's looked pretty darn good through these first 2 weeks.
And, you can always say, that I'm coping here or that, I'm breathing the hopium. But I really feel like the Steelers lost themselves that game rather than the Seahawks winning it. I feel like the Seahawks played really good football. But at the end of the day, the Steelers had situational awareness where it was not the best, especially on that third down and goal run that they scored the touchdown. Obviously, everyone's going to talk about it, the Caleb Johnson touchdown. I feel like given the opportunities and the pieces that the Steelers have on defense and the Steelers that have offense, I think that they can rebound and pick themselves up after this loss.
Well, I mean, just look at the game, right? Okay, so if you don't give up a stupid third down and goal touchdown to Kenneth Walker on a 3rd and 19, if you don't give up a stupid interception with Calvin Austin III tipping the ball up in the air, if you don't give them a stupid touchdown on a really bad special teams play from Caleb Johnson, that's an 18-point swing on those 3 plays alone. How many times are we expecting the Steelers to have crazy, outlier mistakes like that on a weekly basis? There's not going to be many of them, guys, and maybe you get one of those a game. I don't expect 3 of those to happen in every single game. And if you get that 18-point swing, the Steelers have every opportunity to win that football game. I mean, before the Caleb Johnson mistake, they were getting the football back with a chance to tie or take the lead. All right, and instead, you're down 10 in the fourth quarter, and you have to start airing it out and passing it a little bit more. And, man, that Seattle defense is a good defense, man. Like, that, they really is. Like, Mike McDonald knows what he's doing. They got a good secondary. Even without Witherspoon out on the field, they were still doing a good job in coverage. I think that, yesterday was not necessarily a fluke. The Steelers didn't play well, but they were still very competitive against a good football team when they weren't playing their best football. So when they are playing their best football and they are playing better, and hopefully this team does play better in weeks to come, they should be able to still be a very competitive and winning football team, in my opinion. So I'm personally not panicking, at least not yet. $2 from my friend Gary Frank says, hey, Yinzers, so Jack, Ibuka would have been a plus. Yeah, but we'll see how Derek Harmon looks. I mean, right now, the Steelers need a defensive tackle to help them out in the run defense. Like, if we had Ibuka, but our run defense didn't have Derek Harmon, who might be an impact player, people might be saying, oh, we should have drafted Derek Harmon, all this different stuff. And by the way, I still think Calvin Austin III, he had some opportunities that were really missed in that game yesterday. He had an open corner route to the end zone, and Rodgers got yanked down by his horse collar, and it wasn't called. That would have been a touchdown for Calvin Austin because he toasted his guy. Like, Calvin, good route runner. There just wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for him yesterday. I know he didn't have a big impact on the game yesterday, but I'm still a believer in Calvin as this team's number 2 receiver. But when it comes to Roman Wilson, I mean, that's another story. We might have to get another receiver in this receiver room eventually. $20 from my friend Brandon Nicholson. Thanks for the 20, Brandon. Says, I think with the defense, it's just a matter of getting comfortable in the system with all the new players. O-line is what scares me the most. Yeah, but I think the reason why you get all these veteran players, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, all these guys, Patrick Queen last year, of course, going into his second year, like, there shouldn't be this much, disarray. And I don't think the issues necessarily have anything to do with, like, chemistry or cohesion or communication. I think it's more of an issue of playing players out of position and then players that are playing within position playing out of position. All right, that's really what it comes down to for me, and we'll talk about that in our first video today. But I really don't think it's necessarily anything to do with communication or anything like that on the defense. And the offensive line, I thought Broderick played better yesterday. He wasn't perfect, but he was a hell of a lot better than he was against New York. And then it was actually Troy Fautano's day to have a bad day at the office. He gave up multiple quick pressures on Aaron Rodgers, and sometimes in some very big moments, like on third downs, that you don't want to see from Fautano, who you really have high expectations for. So hopefully Fautano and Broderick, as the season goes on, they get more comfortable. This entire young unit that hasn't really played with each other before begins to gel a little bit more. And hopefully they can become a better run blocking unit. They haven't been the best run blocking unit to start the season either, so they got to get better at that. $20 from Gary Frank says, is it that we great players that aren't playing as a team, or is it the team just struggling as a team?
I believe is it that we have great players that aren't playing together as a team, or the team's just struggling as a team?
What I would say is, I think we'll talk about this in the segment, Gary, what I think is going on. But I think what it is I think the Steelers are pretty soft in the interior of their defensive line. I think some guys are playing out of position, which is kind of putting the Steelers in a position to fail. And then on top of that, linebacker play isn't playing very well right now. Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen have struggled at certain times throughout these first few weeks. And that's just creating a big hole in the middle of the Steelers' run defense that especially slashing type of running backs like Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker have really taken advantage of. So I'm going to break down kind of what's going on and then how I think the Steelers can fix it moving forward in our first segment today. But then $3 from Gary Frank again says, hey, Ponzi, how are you feeling from all the pickle juice?
I'm feeling good for now. Yesterday, not good. But, shout out to Platinum. We got, 5 new Black Diamond members?
6 new Black Diamonds yesterday. We made over $4,000 on our watch party yesterday. So to everybody that donated, including Gary, who put in multiple 50s. Shout out to Gary, by the way.
Gave some people some hats.
Gave some people some hats, absolutely. Thank you guys so much to everybody that donated. And even to the people that didn't donate, just came here and hang out with us, man. Like, it's just, that's why we started this community, whether the Steelers win, whether they lose. We just want a place for Steelers fans to come hang out with each other and support each other. And hopefully we've cultivated that here on Steelers Talk. $10 from Justin Yankuski says, Jack, what the actual F? Why is Benton still at the nose? He gets pushed back like every play. Is Tomlin just ignorant to this, or does he actually believe in Benton? Yeah, I think that he knows kind of, I think he knows what the film says. But I think that he thinks Benton's just going to magically play better. And I think that, this has been a big issue with Mike Tomlin, is that he kind of attributes what he thinks a player can do, and he tries putting them in that spot. And even when that player continuously shows that they're not going to be able to play at that spot, he continues to put them there. We saw that with Kevin Dotson, where he goes over to LA, gets traded to LA, and he becomes one of the worst offensive linemen from Pittsburgh to one of the best immediately just by a position change to the other side of the offensive line. I think, we're going to talk about this in our first segment. I think he's playing Benton out of position. I don't think Benton is a nose tackle that can take on double teams, and you ask to kind of hold the line of scrimmage. I think he's a penetrator that can use his quickness and his first step to get into the backfield. And he actually did that a couple of times yesterday when he was asked to, shoot gaps and get to the running back in the backfield. He actually did a really good job disrupting. But when he was asked to kind of hold the line, hold that double team, and kind of hold the line of scrimmage, that's when he got blown off his spot. And it's just a functional strength issue with Benton. So I don't know why Tomlin thinks that he can be that type of player, but, it hasn't worked to this point. I'm hoping that after 2 straight poor performances at the nose that hopefully Benton is out of there. $5 from Brandon Nicholson. Says also, what's up with all the injuries across the league? There's always injuries, Brandon. I think that, because it's a new season, people are still kind of getting used to what life in the NFL is like. And, there's always injuries going on around the National Football League. It's every single season, not just this year. I'm sure last year there was people making comments about, there's so many injuries, right? So it's just the nature of the National Football League. It's a physical sport. Injuries are going to happen on every single team. And honestly, the Steelers, even though they've accrued some injuries here, they haven't even gotten the bad end of the stick. The teams that are really down bad right now are the Bengals and some of these, and San Francisco that have so many injuries, right? So, right now the Steelers certainly need to get healthy. They have some injuries, but, I don't think that it's necessarily an uptick in injuries across the league. I could be wrong on that. If there's some evidence that proves that, there's more injuries this year than in previous years, I'd love to see it, but I think it's pretty consistent. $20 from Rad Doctor. We appreciate you, Rad, with the 20. Appreciate you, my friend. We're now less than $20 away, $19 away to be exact, so we're another $20 super chat away from giving away one of these Steelers Talk hats in a raffle at the end of today's show. So shout out to Rad Doctor for the 20. Okay, Estevan, I see your request. Let me see here if I can accept your friend request on Venmo real quick here, Estevan. All right, there we go. And Rad Doctor coming in with another $20 super chat. All right, so Rad Doctor puts in $40 to get us over the $100 mark here. Before we even get into the raffle, $10 gets you 3 raffle tickets, $20 gets you 10 tickets plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong. If you just want to buy a Steelers Talk hat, straight up, $50 is the price tag to make that happen. And then if we can get to $250 today, we will hit the Gong. And we got a Venmo here, Mr. Ponzi, that I will send your way.
Okie dokie.
And again, guys, if you got questions throughout the show, Ponzi and I are happy to take questions on anything surrounding the Steelers, about the issues that they're having, about who's playing well. What the positives are, Mike Tomlin, all the different stuff that's been floating around, Caleb Johnson, all the stuff that's been floating around Steelers Twitter. If you got questions on it, feel free to send in a question if you guys want to get on the show. But looks like Gary Frank has come in with a $25 super chat. We'll get to Gary's 25 here in just a second, but Estevan Flores with a 5 gets him into the raffle. Says Tomlin and Khan signed all those vets because they know Tomlin can't coach for shit. They hoped, they hoped those players would do his job for him, and it showed last week. And this week, that's a fact. Listen, man, I'm of the opinion that obviously Tomlin and Austin and this coaching staff haven't done a good enough job heading into the season. I think that the results on the field obviously state that. But, they're going to have probably the rest of the season to kind of build out their resume here, right? So we'll see if they make any changes. If they don't make any changes and this team sucks the entire season, I'm guessing they're going to get fired, all right? So, I think they're going to have to win 6 or 7 games for them to be fired. If they win 9 or 10 games, I think they might hold on to him for another season. But if things are not getting better, and this defense is one of the worst in the league this year, despite this talent, I think that they're going to move on, and they're going to try to find someone that can fix this defense, because plain simply, there's enough talent here. I think we all agree there's enough talent for this defense to play a lot better than what they've been playing. And as we're going to talk about in this first segment, I think it's kind of a scenario where some players are being played out of position and some players are playing out of position. So it's a little bit of a combination between coaching malpractice and then execution from players is what I think the issue is right now. But I certainly understand your frustration, Estevan. It certainly hasn't been good enough through the first few games. But obviously, if Tomlin gets this defense to turn around and the defense starts playing better, then I think Tomlin and Austin deserve a little bit of credit for figuring it out, all right? So we'll see what they end up doing. We'll see if they can end up fixing it. I guess we'll see in the weeks to come. Like I said, another 20 from Rad Doctor got us to 100, so shout out to Rad Doctor. And then Gary Frank with a 25 says, let's give a hat away. Appreciate you, Gary Frank, for that $25 super chat. He's been such a real one here over these last few months. Big shout out to Gary for always watching our show. Another $2 super chat here from Bernard Nixon with a 2. He says, A-Rod been hit too many times in 2 weeks. I don't disagree with that at all, man. I think part of the issue too is that the Steelers have been living in 3rd and long too much. They're running the ball on first down with Kenneth Gainwell, and he gets 1 yard. And that puts you behind the sticks, and then you have a drop on 2nd down, and then you're sitting at 3rd and 9, and that's just happening too often, right? Especially yesterday, there was too many drops. Gainwell had a drop, DK had 2 drops, Muth had a drop. There's just too many missed opportunities, and when you're trying to stay ahead of the sticks, especially when you're playing a good defense like Seattle, it just helps out your offensive line and your immobile quarterback to stay ahead of the sticks, because you can get rid of the football faster and still move the sticks without getting your quarterback hit. But yeah, man, this week it was Fautanu who had the bad game. Broderick wasn't perfect in this one, but he was a lot better. And of course, in week 1, Broderick was the one that was playing terribly. So, like I said, hopefully this offensive line can continue to gel. Like I've been saying, guys, your team is a lot different in December and January than it is in September. And with a young group like the Steelers have, a talented but young group, you're hoping that group is able to kind of gel together as the season goes on. And hopefully by January, when you're hoping you're playing your best football, that group has built up some chemistry and they're playing good football. All right, man. Well, let's get into our first segment here. Some great questions to start off today's show. Big shout out to all the people that are super chatting in there. But first up here, we're going to have the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then we'll get into our in-depth Week 3 preview for the New England Patriots. It's time to put Week 2 behind us here and go over the Patriots. But in the meantime here, let's talk about and put a bow on Week 2 with what I saw on the Steelers film in this tough loss versus the Seattle Seahawks. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today I had the opportunity to go watch the All-22 film for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their tough loss versus the Seattle Seahawks. And a lot of Steelers fans are asking, what the hell went wrong? Well, today I'm going to be breaking down what I saw on the Steelers film, some of the things that are going wrong, and then my suggestions for how to fix those things that are going wrong, especially on the Steelers defense right now. And then Pittsburgh just caught 2 extremely lucky breaks on the injury front here. I'm going to explain what those 2 are at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into the content, get down there in the comments section and let me know. What's one thing that Pittsburgh can do to make this team better right now? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is your suggestion to help this team get better heading into Week 3 versus the New England Patriots? So now let's get into my film takeaways here from this tough loss. 31-17, some fluky mistakes from Pittsburgh that I don't expect in future weeks. And without those fluky mistakes, the Steelers are actually a lot more competitive in this football game than I think a lot of Steelers fans are giving them credit for. They caused 2 turnovers. They should have been 2 for 2 in the red zone if it wasn't for a fluke kind of a mistake from Calvin Austin getting in the way of what would have been a touchdown reception for Pat Freiermuth from Aaron Rodgers. And Jaylen Warren, of course, balled out. All right, so there's good things, and then we'll get into the good here. But what every Steelers fan wants to know about is, what went wrong, all right? And we'll start with the negatives here, starting what happened to the run defense, because this is what is probably the most discussed topic on Steelers Twitter right now. And in my opinion, guys, both Keanu Benton and Y.A. Black are playing out of position, and I think they need to switch positions moving forward. And I think that one switch alone will make the Steelers' run game better. Keanu Benton, in my opinion, guys, he is not a nose tackle. And this is something we've talked about many times on the show, especially last week, where Benton is a penetrating type of player, with fast hands, with really good first step. That's what he was at Wisconsin, and he had a bunch of TFLs, a bunch of disruptive plays like that. And when you put him at the nose tackle, he takes on so many more double teams. You ask him to hold the line of scrimmage more. And that's just not what he does. And in this game, guys, when Benton was asked to be a disruptor and shoot gaps, he actually had some really nice plays, and he disrupted the run game a little bit. But also, when you asked him to stay put and kind of hold that line, he got pushed backwards on almost every single occasion. But then you got Y.A. Black, who actually had a couple of nose tackle reps in this game, and he is absolutely holding that line, all right? So it wasn't a perfect game from Y.A. Black. He's a rookie. But at 330 plus pounds, he just has more functional strength than Keanu Benton does. So I really do think Y.A. Black gives this team the best chance at success at nose tackle. And if you put Black at nose tackle and you allow Keanu Benton to play more disruptively, I think that's another added bonus to the Steelers' run game, because we saw Benton be a disruptive force at times and in moments on the film in Week 2 versus the Seattle Seahawks. You take him out of that nose tackle role, I think that already fixes a lot of problems here at the Steelers' defensive line. The question is, will Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin actually make the switch? And then another thing, guys, that I think has really held the Steelers' run defense back, especially these first 2 weeks, is Peyton Wilson. It just looks lost out there, man. He didn't play a lot on early downs last year. Landon Roberts played mostly on early downs as kind of like the designated run defender in the inside linebacker room, and Wilson was kind of more of a blitzer and a coverage linebacker last season. And Wilson honestly wasn't a great run defender in college. That wasn't really what he was known for. But Wilson is playing super aggressively and a little bit too aggressively. He's trying to be the hero out there. Now, it doesn't help when Keanu Benton's being pushed into your lap, all right? I'll acknowledge that. But also, like, he's taking terrible pursuit angles on the outside, on off-tackle runs, all right? So, like, I don't want to hear that's all Keanu Benton's fault why Peyton Wilson is taking these terrible pursuit angles to running backs. I mean, he was the reason why Kenneth Walker scored on that 3rd and 19, that 3rd and goal situation that gave the Seattle Seahawks their 2-touchdown advantage in the 4th quarter, because he took a terrible, over-aggressive pursuit angle and he completely whiffed on him. And you just can't do that, man. As a linebacker, sometimes you just got to know when to play a little bit smarter, when to go out and make a little bit more of an aggressive move. Patrick Queen, I think, did actually a pretty good job of that yesterday, but Peyton Wilson has been consistently out of position, which has created some really big holes for opposing run games to exploit, especially for slashing type of running backs like Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, who have had over 100 yards rushing in these first 2 weeks. And my solution to this, guys, is I would play Cole Holcomb on early downs, all right? And when Malik Harrison comes back, I would consider playing him a little bit more on early downs. Harrison's a really good run defender. He's not as good as a Landon Roberts was, but he's still pretty darn good. And Holcomb, even though he didn't play like perfectly, there was one play particularly in pass coverage where it was a 3rd down and like 15, and he's like backing up as the player is running towards him. It's like, no, you got to go attack Cole. But he was a lot better in run defense than Peyton Wilson was, in my opinion. He's got more experience on early downs in the National Football League than Wilson does, and it shows. So if Wilson can't figure it out, I think you got to put Holcomb out there more often, and hopefully Harrison can get back as well to help in run defense as well. So I think that these are kind of some things, guys, that can really help out the Steelers' run defense immediately, because Cam Hayward is doing a pretty decent job. T.J. Watt's doing a pretty good job as well. They're running away from T.J. Watt, by the way. That's how much teams respect Watt as a run defender. I thought before he got injured, Highsmith was holding up. I thought Herbig held up pretty decently. Maybe some of the rotational guys, Logan Lee, Daniel Quale, and Loudermilk weren't doing a great job up front either. But I think if you just make this switch where you put Y.A. Black at nose tackle, you put Benton at the 5 technique, and then you play Holcomb on early downs and put Wilson back in that kind of blitzing linebacker, coverage linebacker, 3rd down linebacker role that he played last year, I think that instantly makes this Steelers defense better and might just end up fixing it. Overnight here. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. What is your confidence level that Pittsburgh will fix their run defense? Put on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm guessing I'm going to get a lot of 1s because I know not a lot of people are too high on Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin right now. But let me know what you guys think, guys. Your confidence level, Pittsburgh will fix their run defense. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. While I'm telling you about Prize Picks, let me know your confidence level in the Steelers' defensive coaching staff. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. And guys, you and I, we make decisions every single day. But on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'm going to be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. There's nothing worse than putting in a play and then the player gets injured and it completely ruins it, right, guys? So if one of your players leaves the game in the first half with injury on Prize Picks and doesn't return, Prize Picks isn't going to count it as a loss, which is one of the features that I absolutely love from this app. So you guys can take a look at my Monday Night Football projection for tonight's games. I'm going to take the less on Bucky Irving rushing yards, the more on passing touchdowns for Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, the more on punts from Riley Dixon, and the less on punts from Tommy Townsend. So you guys can download the app today. It's free to download, guys. Super easy to use as well. So use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, moving on to some of the other issues that I saw on the film for the Steelers is you got to fix the deep crosser coverage safety, and apparently the Steelers are teaching their single high safety to cut the underneath crosser, all right? And that's what they've been doing those first 2 weeks. But what that does, especially when you're playing outside leverage with your corners, is that the over top crosser is going to be wide open because that corner is going to be trying to catch up to that player. I believe the first week it was Garrett Wilson, and then I think it was Torrey Horton. It was not even like a fast receiver. Jalen Ramsey couldn't keep up with him because he was playing outside leverage. So the Steelers need to address this. They probably need to know that opposing offenses are going to take advantage of this as long as they possibly can. Until they can show that they can stop it, teams are going to continue to put this in their game plans against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So hopefully Tara Lawson and Mike Tomlin see this deficiency that they have had and they have created within their scheme, and they better come up with a solution to help fight it here. And probably you have the safety help going towards the most dangerous target is probably the way that you handle that situation. But then, another thing that was kind of a weakness in the passing defense for the Steelers is you got to secure the middle of the field. I mean, Cooper Kupp barely had any production at all in week 1, and then he lights it up in week 2 because he just gets these little deke and dunk underneath kind of middle types of passes. And once again, this goes towards the linebackers and the middle defenders there in the Steelers defense. And also it has to do with scheme as well. Like the Steelers are just showing a little bit too much pre-snap, and they're just allowing too much space in the middle of their defense for guys like Sam Darnold. And you know what, man, like Tanner Engstrand and Clint Kubiak, two really good offensive play callers in my opinion. They're going to take advantage of the space that you give them, and Sam Darnold's a hell of a thrower over the middle of the field, and that's what we saw yesterday afternoon. And then another thing here, guys, is that the blitz isn't getting home enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I think part of the reason why they went out and got Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey is because they want to play a lot more man coverage, and we have seen the Steelers play a lot of man these first 2 games, and they've been doing a lot of man blitzing, but, kind of the benefit of that is that, you hope that those guys hold up on the back end, and you're hoping that the blitz can actually get home. And right now, the Steelers only have 3 sacks through 2 games with a blitzing percentage of over 40%. I mean, they're blitzing pretty much 40% of the time on defense, which is a pretty darn high percentage. And they're not really getting the production that they're hoping to get out of that. Usually if you send extra rushers, you want to be able to get to the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, force them into tough positions. But the rush isn't getting home fast enough. B, guys that do get home don't finish the job. Patrick Queen yesterday missed a big sack opportunity in the 4th quarter when the Steelers were trying to come back. And then also, C, the back-end coverage needs to be better. All right, Jalen Ramsey, I think he allowed 9 catches on 11 targets in his area yesterday. Like, that's just not good enough. He did have the interception. And he did make some impact plays like Jalen Ramsey does, but he also gave up the touchdown to Torrey Horton. Again, we talked about why that's not all his fault. I thought his coverage on JSN on that deep shot was pretty good. It was just a nice catch from Smith and Jigba. But overall, guys, the coverage obviously has not been good enough on the back end, especially in man. And guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson have really taken advantage of that man coverage throughout these first 2 weeks. Another thing here is that you just now moving on to the offensive side of the ball and the bad stuff on that side, the Steelers just couldn't get Seattle out of their too high coverage shells. They tried running the ball on first down when Seattle wanted to play their too high shells, and they couldn't get them out of it. Like, they were running it with Kenneth Gainwell, and it would be like a 1 or 2 yard gain, and it wouldn't be enough. And Jaylen Warren actually did a pretty decent job yesterday, in my opinion, on the ground. But, whenever you're giving half the carries to Kenneth Gainwell, your run game's not going to be overly effective, right? So I think in future weeks when you play defenses like this that like to play too high coverage, you got to do a better job of running the ability, tipping the ball in the air for what would have been a touchdown to Pat Freiermuth in the end zone on an awesome scramble play from Aaron Rodgers, by the way, to just good old drops, right? You got DK Metcalf that had 2 drops yesterday. Pat Freiermuth had a drop on a beautiful deep ball from Aaron Rodgers. You had a drop from Kenneth Gainwell. You had multiple drops in this football game, guys, and a lot of wide receiver error, which obviously needs to be cleaned up in the weeks to come. And then, unfortunately, guys, Troy Fautano had a rough week. He really did. He allowed multiple pressures, especially to Boye Mafe, who had a really good week for the Seattle Seahawks. He's had a really good start to his 2025 campaign, but, you draft Fautano in the first round to handle really good edge rushers like Mafe and the guys that they got there in Seattle, and he didn't do a good enough job of that, so hopefully he's able to turn things around. Now, coming up here, I'm going to tell you about some of the good things that I saw from the Steelers film, because it's not just all bad, guys. There is good, and I think both sides of the discussion need to be had here if we're going to have an honest, in-depth, nuanced discussion about what we see on the film. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because if you guys want level-headed, nuanced, in-depth Steelers content every single day, that's what we try to provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk. We put out at least one, but usually 2 videos on this channel every single day. Breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a move. We go live multiple times a week, including for our live watch parties for every single Steelers game. And it's all 100% free, guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and join the Steelers Talk family for nuanced, in-depth Steelers content. So now let's talk about what did go well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because yes, we acknowledge the bad, but we also acknowledge the good. And I feel like a lot of the good is being forgotten based on, the fact that the Steelers lost the football game in an embarrassing fashion with a lot of kind of silly mistakes, but there was some good to take away on the film yesterday. First of all, there was flashes of good run defense. All right, we saw Maye Black show some really good things in terms of holding blocks, which makes me think that he would be an excellent nose tackle here in Pittsburgh. We saw Keanu Benton as a disruptor at times, get in the backfield with quick wins in run defense. We saw Patrick Queen have a pretty decent day as well, getting into the backfield, making some plays happen, all right? So it wasn't all bad in the run defense department. Obviously, Kenneth Walker absolutely killed you with over 100 yards, but Zach Charbonnet barely got anything on the day. So, I want to acknowledge some of the good stuff that we did see from the Steelers' run defense. It just needs to be way more consistent. Then we get to the fact that the turnovers were back. I mean, remember last year, guys, when we had that stretch, I think it was like 5 games in a row where the Steelers had at least 3 turnovers. Well, we got 2 of them this past game here, and they were both earned, all right? That was Jalen Ramsey sticking in the hip pocket of Cooper Kupp and then snatching that thing out with outstretched arms. That's an earned interception right there. That's not a gift from Sam Darnold. And then another one, you get a quick pressure from Cam Hayward. He gets his paw on the football. Nick Herbig is right there to get the interception. Those are 2 very earned interceptions from the Steelers that are not gifts from the opposing team, all right? I think a lot of the turnovers that the Steelers gave the Seahawks were kind of like gift kind of turnovers. I think the Steelers earned both of their turnovers yesterday, which is a really good sign that we could see more of that this season. Another thing that was a positive is I think Watt on film looks a lot better than what he looked like in the stat sheet, because obviously, just 2 pressures is what PFF gave him. No sacks, no TFLs. And obviously you want to see that production from somebody that's making so much money. I understand that, but there was a couple of pressures yesterday where it was really, really great stuff from TJ Watt. He had some really good stuff in the run game again this week. Obviously he hasn't had the forced fumbles that we're used to, the sack production that we're used to, the TFL production that we're used to from him. And I'm hoping, based on what we're seeing from the film, he still looks good on film to me, guys. He still looks explosive. He still looks like defenses or offenses are really respecting him, putting a lot of chip help on him. So offenses are still very afraid of him. So I still think he's going to be an impact later on down the road, and I do expect that production to tick up in the weeks to come. Then we get to Nick Herbig, who I thought looked awesome. He consistently won around the edge with speed. He also had that interception as well. I think he held up in run defense as well. That's been a big knock on Herbig, even going into the league from college, was that he wasn't going to be able to defend the run. I thought he held up pretty decently in this game. Then you get to Queenie, who plays off-ball linebacker, had a tough week 1 along with Peyton Wilson, but I thought he played a lot better this week. Now in coverage, you could tell he was hurting with that rib injury a bit, and he wasn't moving the way that he wanted to, and he was a second late on a couple of pass attempts from Darnold over the middle. But in terms of the run defense, he was playing with great instincts. He knew when to shoot gaps. He knew when to go out and make a play when he had an opening, and then he also knew when to kick back a little bit and play it a little bit more conservatively and smart, making sure that he didn't create a run lane for Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet. So I thought Queenie looked a lot better in run defense. So that's a positive. And if you guys want to help out the channel today, guys, you appreciate our content, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all the support you give to the channel. And if you click that thumbs up icon, it tells the YouTube algorithm to push this video out to other Steelers fans like yourselves. So it really does help us out, helps us grow the channel. So if you want to help us grow, click that thumbs up icon. Finishing out here with a couple of offensive good points here that I want to point out. It was a better week from Broderick Jones. It wasn't perfect. He's still dipping his head way too much. He's still, not using his hands effectively or as effectively as he could, but it wasn't a disaster like it was in week 1. So I will take competent performance, an okay performance over disaster any day of the week, and hopefully he continues to build as the season goes on. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, I thought he wasn't nearly as bad as maybe the narrative coming out of that game would make you think with just 17 points. He should have had 2 touchdown passes. The second one would have been an awesome play, corkscrewing his body to get it to Pat Freiermuth. If Calvin doesn't put his hand out there to tip it up in the air, that is pretty much a guaranteed touchdown right there for Rodgers in the offense, and that completely changes the game. He had an unbelievable throw down the field to Pat Freiermuth that was dropped while rolling out to his right. He had a really great throw rolling out to his left to Jaylen Warren that turned into like a 70-plus yarder. He had a really nice throw on 4th down to Calvin Austin over the middle in a desperate moment with the defense playing back. Like, there was a lot of good stuff from Aaron Rodgers yesterday. It's just, like I talked about earlier, the wide receiver errors, the lack of protection at times from Fautano, it just kind of culminated in kind of a tumultuous day on offense, to say the least. It's got to be better moving forward, and Rodgers wasn't perfect. He had a really bad turnover-worthy play trying to get the ball to Roman Wilson on a ball over the middle. He needs to play better, no question about it, but I don't think it was nearly as bad of a performance as some Steelers fans are making it out to be. And then speaking of Jaylen Warren, he's our best offensive player, all right? And I think Aaron Rodgers is actually pretty close to that. Rodgers has been a big bright spot for this offense the first 2 weeks, but Jaylen Warren, man, he's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, he averaged over 6 yards a touch in week 2 versus the Seahawks. He was unbelievable as a pass catcher, jumping over guys, picking up first downs, making guys miss. He was pretty efficient as a runner as well. I just think that Arthur Smith or Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers offense needs to find as many opportunities as they possibly can to feature this guy in their offense because he can certainly handle that number 1 running back workload, and he can handle it with grace and with efficiency and, frankly, with explosion. So great stuff from Jaylen Warren, and you got to really feature him the rest of the season. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comment section. Jaylen Warren is Pittsburgh's best offensive player right now. Type T for true or F for false. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. We'll finish up today's news and rumors segment here on Steelers Talk by going over some injury news here. There's some big injury news in the AFC North here, man, as Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow has turf toe that requires surgery. And according to the reports coming out, he will miss at least the next 3 months of the NFL season, which, of course, is most of the rest of the regular season schedule. So if you're a Bengals fan, that's really, really tough, especially given the amount of defensive talent that the Bengals have, or should I say lack, on that roster right now. And, what that means, guys, is that Burrow's expected to miss not one but both of the Bengals' matchups with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, making those matchups a little bit more favorable for the Steelers. The Steelers' offense has traditionally ripped apart that Bengals defense over the last several seasons, even with guys like Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, and the like. But, obviously with Joe Burrow not on the other sideline, you definitely have a better chance of coming out with a W. But it also means that Cincinnati's season in the AFC North is likely over. I think Jake Browning is a pretty good backup quarterback, but with the defense as bad as it is in Cincinnati, it's just a tough situation, man, where I just don't think Browning's going to be able to hold up that unit, even with guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins to throw to. I think Browning will play pretty decently, but it won't be enough to win a lot of these ball games. And I think Cincinnati is all but out of the AFC North race at this point in time, unless Browning really balls out or the defense steps up in a major way. Then another break for Pittsburgh is Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain that he suffered last night on Sunday Night Football versus the Atlanta Falcons. And, of course, the Vikings are slated to play the Steelers in 2 weeks in Ireland. So that means that the Steelers are going to be playing a quarterback that looks like a leprechaun, Carson Wentz, there in Week 4 in Dublin. Maybe that's good news. Maybe that's bad news. Maybe he'll bring the luck of the Irish to the Vikings. I mean, I don't know, man. But Carson Wentz, not a good quarterback, backup level guy. Maybe by that point, rookie Max Brosmer is in there. And honestly, I don't want to see Brosmer. I'd much rather see Wentz because Brosmer looked pretty darn good in those preseason games. But Wentz grew up a Vikings fan, so good opportunity for him. But it's also, a pretty lucky break for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though I can't necessarily say the Vikings offense looked great with McCarthy in there, and I'd probably still favor the Steelers going up against McCarthy in that putrid Vikings offense in Week 4. But now you got a backup quarterback in there. It's certainly not great news for the Vikings either heading into that matchup. So you take a look at the next 4 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. There's no excuses, right? You got Drake Maye, who is definitely the best quarterback you're facing over the next 4 weeks, but he's a young quarterback, and Mike Tomlin has an excellent record versus first and second year quarterbacks. Then you got Carson Wentz, who hasn't been a bona fide starter in this league for multiple seasons. Then you got Joe Flacco, who also hasn't been a bona fide starter for multiple seasons, but he is this year. And then you got Jake Browning for the Cincinnati Bengals and a terrible defense to go up against as well there in Cincinnati. So you look at this 4-game stretch, there is no reason why Pittsburgh can't win all 4 of these games and that they shouldn't go at least 3-1. And I think that the Steelers really do need to go 3-1. And honestly, with the Steelers defense looking to kind of fix some things right now, try to get right, I think that this is kind of a gift from heaven here where the Steelers have a chance to really get right here against some poor quarterbacks, really build up some confidence and some chemistry among this new group, fix some things with their run game, do all the things that they need to do before they face a gauntlet of tougher teams in the second half of their schedule. Baltimore twice. You got Buffalo. Indianapolis looks like that's not going to be a gimme game either. Los Angeles. You got a lot of tough games down the stretch this season. So you got to start stacking up these wins. You got to set that foundation for success and for a playoff berth this year. It all starts these next 4 weeks right here in Pittsburgh. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. What will Pittsburgh's record be over the next 4 games? They could very easily win all 4 of these next 4 games, guys. But obviously you got to take them one at a time. You got to go out and get these wins. You can't take anyone lightly in this league, especially when there's games that you should be winning from a talent perspective. So let me know what you guys think. Do they go 4-0, 3-1? Do you think that they stink it up and the season's effectively over? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And I want to thank all the real ones for sticking with me here. It's a little bit of a lengthy one today. Lots to talk about from the film from week 2. Lots to talk about with some of the injury news around the league. So I want to thank you for making it with me here to the end of today's show. Type real one down there in the comment section if you haven't already. If you made it to the end of today's show, and make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got more extensive Steelers coverage coming your way all throughout this week and the 2025 NFL season. All right, first segment in the books, Mr. Ponzi. Coming up next, our in-depth preview. Steelers versus Patriots. Got to be a get-right game here, Ponzi. Of course, Jabril Peppers, I think, might be playing a little bit more this week. Another week of practice to kind of get used to the scheme and the team and all that stuff, and he gets to play against the team that just cut him. So what a story that is for Jabril Peppers. But obviously the big storyline is you got to get in the win column this week, because if you go to 1-2 and losing to a Patriots team that frankly has not looked great these first 2 weeks, they've been competitive, but and they are also 1-1. But I think that if the Steelers lose this game, Ponzi, there's going to be a lot of panic in Steelers Nation.
I think so too. I mean, I really think that getting off to a 2-1 start, although the one loss, you don't really feel good about it, but still is infinitely better than getting off to a 1-2 start, especially with teams that are expecting that we expected to be worse are doing good right now, like the Colts, and like even so, like more like the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Like we really thought that the Seahawks. Or the Steelers had a better record or a better matchup against the Seahawks on paper, and obviously the Steelers played a lot worse than that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt. I just noticed we're about $100 away from hitting the gong, so if you guys want to get those super chats in, we are giving away a Steelers Talk hat at the end of the show. $5 to get into the raffle, $10 to get 3 tickets, $20 to get 10 tickets, plus your name on the Steelers Talk gong. Got the gong right here so you guys know what it is. We put names of the Steelers fans that are gracious enough to bless us with some donations. So if you guys want to get your name on the gong, $20, get your name on there. Spots are starting to run out though, Ponzi. We're starting to
We are.
We're starting to run low on spots available. But if we can get to 250 total, we'll hit the gong today. So we got a couple more super chats I saw during that segment that we need to catch up on. And then we'll get into our preview, and we'll finish up today's show.
Get those super chats right up for you.
All right. Let's go.
And this should be a fun one.
This one's a fun one?
The Patriots one?
The Patriots preview, you mean?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I mean, all of them are fun, right? They're all fun, except when you're losing. But, yeah, man, like Drake Maye, very interesting matchup versus Mike Tomlin, because Tomlin's usually really good against young quarterbacks. I think versus rookies, he's got like an over 90% win percentage or something like that. It's a little bit lower against second-year guys, but usually quarterbacks facing a Tomlin defense for the first time don't tend to do too well. Michelle West, big-time supporter of the show, says, if you were Mr. Rooney, what would you change? Well, the thing that I like about Mr. Rooney is he really doesn't meddle with football operations. He lets his football people make the football decisions. And, there's good sides to that and bad sides to that. Obviously, if there's a needed change that needs to be made, the owner doesn't step in and makes the change. But also, like, if I have to choose between an owner that's always meddling, look at David Tepper, look at Jerry Jones, look at some of these other owners around the league that are very, very involved with day-to-day operations. Usually those teams are very poorly run organizations. And the reason why the Steelers have been able to stay so stable for the most part, all right, they're not winning Super Bowls, but they are, without question, a stable organization, all right? Like, the franchise win record is just insane compared to some of the other teams in the league in terms of the history of this team since the Super Bowl era. So you can't question that this isn't a stable organization. It absolutely is. And part of the reason for that is they let the football people make football decisions. And the owner doesn't, the owner that frankly doesn't know all that much about football doesn't, put his nose into places where it really doesn't belong and that he's not qualified for. So that's one of the things that I really respect about Mr. Rooney. Is he a perfect owner? No, I don't think he spends enough on anything because, if I'm in his shoes, I don't know shit about football. So I'm not going to make any changes there. But if this defense doesn't get better, it's the most expensive defense in the league, and it's not getting any better, and they're still giving up 20-plus points, like 24, 27-plus points per game, 300 yards of offense every single game, all that different stuff, and, Tomlin's not getting it better by the end of the season, that's when I'm interjecting myself as the owner, and I'm firing him to hire someone that can actually do the job. $5 from Tanker365 says Broderick Jones needs to go. Your thoughts on a possible trade acquisition? Rodgers has no time to throw half the time due to pressure from the left. Honestly, yesterday it was Fautano that was giving up a lot of the pressure. Now, Broderick wasn't perfect yesterday, and he was terrible in week 1, so I understand where you're coming from there. If Broderick plays just absolutely atrociously, and we're at the trade deadline, we're like, man, we need a left tackle. Braxton Jones from Chicago makes some sense. Rasheed Walker from Green Bay makes some sense. And there's a list of some other names that make some sense. Braden Smith from Indianapolis. I kind of doubt they're going to trade somebody because they look pretty competent through 2 weeks, if not good. So I don't know if he's available, but the thing about tackles, man, is that it's very rare that you can get someone to trade you one, especially a starting caliber one. Because if you have a starting caliber tackle, even as a swing tackle, you want to keep them around because injuries happen, right? So you're going to have to get like a perfect storm of a tackle on the last year of his contract and a team that's going to be selling at the deadline. So here's a list of potential offensive tackle trade targets. Obviously, it depends on what the records are for these teams and all that different stuff and how willing they are to come to the table. Cam Robinson did a pretty decent job in Minnesota when he was traded from Jacksonville to Minnesota last year after Christian Darrisaw had his injury. Guys like Jermaine Illuminor and Jawan Taylor are right tackles. You'd probably have to move Fautano over to the left if you trade for those guys. But Braxton Jones and Rasheed Walker are probably the top two guys that I would want to target. And honestly, I think Braxton Jones, given the poor start for Chicago, is probably the more likely option at the trade deadline. So Braxton Jones would be my answer as the most likely trade target at that position. Then you got one from WS Auto Glass, $2, says TJ Watt isn't making a big enough impact, no sacks. I'll say this, man. I think on film he looks a lot better there than he does on the stat sheet. All right, they are intentionally avoiding TJ Watt. Offenses are. They're still giving him the same attention that they give him. They still do all the stuff that they usually do against him, and now they're running the football intentionally away from TJ Watt because he's still an elite run defender. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, if he's an elite run defender, why is the run defense so terrible? It's because they're running away from him, right? It's not TJ. It's kind of the interior of the defensive line getting pushed backwards and then linebacker play not playing up to standard. So, TJ, I think, has gotten some nice pressures, both on TJ, both on Sam Darnold and Justin Fields these first 2 weeks. Obviously, he hasn't gotten home for a sack or a forced fumble like we're used to seeing from him, but I think these teams are intentionally saying, hey, you got to get the ball out of your hands very quickly. And if you don't, you're checking it down or you're trying to run. And I think we've seen that from Sam Darnold and Justin Fields these first 2 weeks. Now, obviously, you're paying this guy $41 million per season. Like, you're paying him to get the production even though the teams are game planning for him, right? So that's why he's making that kind of money. Micah Parsons is able to make the kind of impact even when Washington was double-teaming him, right? So, like, you expect T.J. Watt to be able to break through regardless of how they're game planning, and that's perfectly fair. But I will say on film, man, the explosiveness is still there. The savviness is still there. I really do think, guys, in the weeks to come, he's gonna, we're gonna see that production that he's been lacking these first 2 weeks. Hope I'm right about that. I'm gonna be pretty bummed if this is the production that we're gonna be getting used to from T.J. Watt on that contract. $5 from Gary Frank says, let Tomlin QB a game. Let him get his ass crushed. He will fix the O-line. Yeah, man, like 100% Gary. I mean, like I said, guys, I was not a big fan of bringing back Pat Maye. I wasn't. I thought that out of the changes that Tomlin said were coming on the coaching staff, I thought that was going to be the one that was like etched in stone because the O-line was just so bad for so many years. And they honestly didn't replace all that much on this coaching staff outside of the secondaries coach. But yeah, man, it's certainly not good enough to start, but this is what I'll say, Gary, all right? To give Pat Maye a little bit of grace and to give this young O-line a little bit of grace. This team will be different in January and December than they are in September, all right? And this is a young group that hasn't played a lot with each other yet, and they're still learning how to play in the NFL, all right? And, even Broderick, who's played in the NFL, still learning how to play on the left side. So outside of Sayamalu, there's still a lot of learning going on there. So I'm hoping that once this group can gel a little bit, by season's end, this group is actually a pretty darn functional offensive line. Right now, I would say it's not. But hopefully, as the season goes on, that growth continues to happen. $5 from It's Juju says, feels like TJ is getting chipped and double-teamed, tripled more than ever. With that said, do you think he can still get 15 sacks this year? It's not impossible for him to get 15, but listen, man, like he hasn't really been like that 20-sack, almost 2-sack-a-game type of guy for a little while now. Like, what makes TJ Watt so valuable is the attention he gets from opposing offenses and then his versatility of skill set. So, yes, he can disrupt the passer. Yes, he can get sacks. Yes, he can get he's a great run defender, one of the best run defender edge rushers in the league. And then also, what's really been his bread and butter and what's made him super valuable is the forced fumbles, all right? And, when he's forcing fumbles like crazy, that's when he is in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. That's what it was before he got injured last year, and then the production fell off after the injury, of course. But, honestly, his greatest value is not even as a pass rusher. It's as a turnover creator, as a forced fumble creator with that punch that he's got. So hopefully he still has that, and he gets us at least a few forced fumbles this year. But, I would say I'm still expecting double-digit sacks from T.J. Watt this year at the very least. $2 from Pat Lepla says, my info for the hat is in. Thank you so much, Pat Lepla. Got your email or the email for your thing, and we will make sure to get you your hat as soon as possible. I think we just got a $2 super chat here from Gary Frank here, Ponzi. And he says, December, the season done, no payoff, wasted season. We'll see on that, man, because like we talked about, these next 4 weeks, very, very winnable. And if you can go 4-0 in these next 4 weeks, you are sitting, sir, at 5-1. All right, and you are about, 5 wins away with 11 games left to go. I'm just saying, man, obviously there's a cutoff point. Obviously there's a point where, it's just too late to figure it out, and, you're losing too many games on the front end to figure it out towards the end. But, if the Steelers are in the playoffs and they're playing their best football in January, then, that's when you want to be playing your best football. Would you rather be playing great right now on defense like you were last year and then play like shit in December like you were last season? Or would you rather play your best football towards the end of the year, get into the playoffs, and then you're going in hot? Like, I think I would rather have, the latter than the former, because we experienced the former last year where this defense was like historic the first 5-6 weeks of the season, and then they dropped off at the end. And like, you want to be playing your best football at the end of the season. So hopefully this team is able to do that on both sides of the football, because plain and simply, it hasn't been good enough on either side of the ball the first 2 weeks. So coming up next here, we got our Week 3 preview versus the Patriots. It's a big game, or at least it feels like a big game. Patriots, they've been a competitive team the first 2 weeks of the year, but they haven't been necessarily a great team. They don't have a ton of talent on that roster. So the Steelers really need to take advantage of that and really get a get-right game here in Week 3 to get themselves to 2-1, feeling really good about themselves going up against Carson Wentz and the Minnesota Vikings in Dublin in the international game. All right, so let's get into our next segment here, guys. The Week 3 preview is coming at you guys right now. This week, the Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Foxborough, Massachusetts to take on Drake Maye and the New England Patriots in Week 3. What really feels like a must-win for the Steelers in the sense of they need to get right, all right? The first 2 weeks, very sloppy, both sides of the football. Certain concerns are out there surrounding the Steelers, not just on the offensive side of the ball where there was expected to be some hiccups, but also on the defensive side of the ball where, frankly, it has just not looked good through the first 2 weeks of the season. So hopefully the Steelers can turn things around here in Week 3. But we're going to be going live for this game. We're going to be going live at 12 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday. An hour of pregame coverage, followed by live play-by-play, and then extensive post-game coverage for Steelers versus Patriots. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for all of our game previews here on Steelers Talk. As you're going to see throughout this video, we go pretty in-depth on these game previews. We also go live for every single game with our watch parties, and then we have post-game reactions for every single Steelers game as well. For noon games, we actually have 2 post-game shows that go out after the game is over. So make sure you click that subscribe button for the most extensive Steelers coverage you're going to find here on the YouTube platform. All right, so now let's get into this matchup here. Gillette Stadium on Sunday, the 1-1 matchup here between the Steelers and the New England Patriots. Patriots beat the Miami Dolphins last week. Steelers beat the New York Jets in Week 1. In terms of the losses, the Steelers lost to the Seahawks last week at Acrisure Stadium, and the Patriots lost Week 1 to Geno Smith and the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll start here with the injuries for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the guys that we know are going to be out this week. Deshaun Elliott, the strong safety, still dealing with that knee injury. Alex Highsmith just suffered a high ankle sprain. He'll be out a month or a month and a half, it sounds like. And then Isaiah Loudermilk, similar timetable with the high ankle sprain himself, will also be out for this football game. Some injuries to watch this week. Derek Harmon, there's some conflicting reports about when he's expected to be back. The Steelers did not put him on IR, so there's some whispers he could be back for this game, but we got to keep an eye on him with that knee injury he suffered in the preseason. Joey Porter Jr. Has been dealing with a hamstring issue. He's only played really a half a game versus the Jets and missed last week versus Seattle. And Christian Gonzalez missed time last week with an injury, missed the game. And then you got Keon White, who missed the game with an illness for New England last week. So you take a look at the coaching breakdown and the scheme breakdown for the New England Patriots. Mike Vrabel is back as a head coach in the National Football League here with the Patriots. And he's got a very good coaching record, 55-46. Led multiple teams to the playoffs. He led the Tennessee Titans, Arthur Smith's former head coach there in Tennessee, to a number 1 seed over teams like Kansas City, over teams like Cincinnati, over teams like the Buffalo Bills with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback, right? So Vrabel, very well known as a culture builder. It's very much what he is. You're going to get a fight from this New England Patriots team on Sunday, guys, no matter what the score is. The scheme for the offense, Josh McDaniels is their offensive play caller and coordinator. He runs an Earhart-Perkins system, puts a lot of onus on the quarterback to get in the right protections, make switches at the line of scrimmage. Very vast umbrella of audible checks for the quarterback as well. We'll talk about later in the show. Then on defense, Terrell Williams is their defensive play caller and coordinator, but he missed last week with an issue that the Patriots are not disclosing. So keep that in mind. It might not be him calling the plays, but they do run a multiple attacking front. They get a lot of their stuff from the Belichick system with 3-4 front, with cover 1, cover 3 stuff, a vast array of stuff, lots of cover 0 as well from this Patriots group. So the results so far for the New England Patriots, they lost week 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders by a score of 20-13. Geno Smith had a hell of a day throwing the football that day, and then they won in week 2 versus the Miami Dolphins in kind of a shootout there. 33-27 was the score for the Pats. So that is what they've done so far. And then we can take a look at the Patriots roster, where you got Drake Maye as their starting quarterback, and their offensive line has certainly been in a tumultuous situation for many years, and that it has extended to this year. Will Campbell is their starting left tackle. He's got really kind of tiny baby arms, all right? So whoever your longest edge rusher is, whether that's Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, well, I guess Highsmith can't play, but between Herbig and Watt, I would put whoever has the longest arms on him and try to take advantage of that, because he's got one of the shortest wingspans in NFL history for a starting offensive tackle, but very highly technically sound. So you're going to have to win with length to make it a tough day on Campbell. But then Jared Wilson is their left guard, another rookie, so definitely can take advantage of that. Garrett Bradbury, decent run blocker, but not a good pass protector. So Wilson and Bradbury is really the weakness in terms of pass protection on that line that you can take advantage of. And then Mike Onwenu, very, very good right guard. That's one of the bright spots on this offensive line, with Morgan Moses, former teammate of Aaron Rodgers, is playing right tackle for the New England Patriots right now. Then you got Stephon Diggs as their number 1 receiver. Keyshawn Boutte has been a pretty decent weapon for Drake Maye. He's got good chemistry with him. And then Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, as their slot wide receiver. Pretty decent trio of receivers there. It's definitely not bad, all right? So Drake Maye does have some weapons to work with here. Ramondre Stevenson is their number 1 running back, with Hunter Henry as their tight end. But watch out for rookie Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. He's also in the mix in this Patriots offense. But then you go to the defensive side of the ball. Keon White, he dealt with an illness last week. We'll see if he's able to go, but he is one of their starting edge rushers. And then you got Harold Landry as another starting edge here in New England. Milton Williams had a hell of a game against Miami last week. You got to really do a good job protecting him, or protecting Aaron Rodgers from him, I should say. And then Christian Barmore, a little bit of a slow start to his season, coming off a major injury, but when he is on, he is one of the best defensive tackles in football. In terms of the off-ball backers, Robert Spillane, somebody Steelers fans should be very well aware of. Very good tackler, very aggressive player. Played really well for the Las Vegas Raiders over the last several years before coming here to New England. Then Christian Ellis, a very athletic linebacker. So pretty decent linebacking group here for the New England Patriots. Then you get to the secondary, where you got Christian Gonzalez. He will be questionable, it sounds like, this week. We'll see if he's able to go. And then Carlton Davis, another really good player on the outside. So if both of these guys can go, it's going to be tough to win on the outside. But Marcus Jones, another decent player in the slot. But then the safeties is really where the Patriots kind of falter. Jalen Hawkins and Craig Woodson, 2 very young players, very raw players that are getting some very very big playing time minutes here for the New England Patriots. So you can definitely take advantage of that safety duo if you can beat one of their corners. And if Christian Gonzalez can't go, it looks like it will once again be Alex Austin, who started last week versus Miami and just got absolutely toasted by Jalen Waddle, as well as Tyreek Hill. So Alex Austin, definitely somebody to keep your eye on here. If Christian Gonzalez can't go, definitely got to take advantage of him. So still to come here on Steelers Talk in our preview here for Week 3. Keys to victory versus the Patriots. We got my scouting report on Drake Maye, the starting quarterback for the Patriots, and my Week 3 score prediction coming up here in just a second. But if you guys want to get an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey, now is a great time to do that while also helping out our channel. You can go chatsports.com/AR8. That link is in the comments and description of today's show. And if you click that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics, our sponsor today, sends us part of the proceeds of that purchase. So if you guys want a great price on an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey, officially licensed by the NFL, by the way, you can go chatsports.com/AR8 to pick up your Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey today. So first, key to victory. I got 6 of them this week, all right? Kind of a shorter list than our first 2 previews, but I think that it's pretty short and sweet, all right? First thing you got to do on defense is make life hard for Drake Maye. All right, and Drake is somebody that has played, I think, pretty darn well to this point in his career, given the circumstances. I mean, the environment that he was thrown into last year with a bad head coach, bad offensive play caller, terrible O-line, no weapons, and he put up the numbers that he did last year. And then the start that he's had this year, it's been pretty darn impressive, man. Over 70% completion percentage, over 250 yards passing per game with 4 touchdowns to just 1 interception. The interception was pretty ugly in week 1, by the way, but he's got a passer rating over 100. So Drake Maye, definitely a problem. He's going to be a problem in this conference for a while. But, you know, something to keep in mind here, though, guys, is that Las Vegas and Miami definitely don't have the best of defenses, all right? The Raiders might have the worst secondary in the league, and then the Miami Dolphins might have the second worst secondary in the league. This is not, you know, 2 great defenses that he's been picking apart. It's been a good start for him, but he definitely hasn't seen anything like the talent, at least, that the Steelers have on defense. So hopefully Mike Tomlin and the crew here can stop Drake Maye. But the scouting report here on Maye, I think he's got terrific size, great arm talent, plus athleticism. So you got to keep an eye on him in terms of the rushing ability. Playmaking instincts out of structure are really good as well. This kid will make some throws that you just simply will not believe. He's got great touch throwing the ball down the field and in an intermediate level of the field. But the cons, sometimes he's got some inconsistent accuracy and decision-making. He's still a work in progress. And both of those things, some of the accuracy issues do come from a lack of footwork, refinement for him. So I have him ranked currently going into the season as the 16th best quarterback in the National Football League. I think he really elevated that Patriots offense last year, and he's already off to a really good start here in 2025. But also keep in mind here, guys, that Mike Tomlin has been very successful versus young quarterbacks throughout his career, all right? Like first and second year quarterbacks, I can't exactly remember the record here, but Mike Tomlin, like the record with first and second year quarterbacks, it's really, really good for his defenses and for his team. So just keep that in mind with a second-year quarterback going up against the Steelers defense here this week, that Mike Tomlin usually does a pretty darn good job facing quarterbacks for the first time they face one of his defenses. But then, you know, a big issue here, and, you know, deservingly so, that people are upset with the Steelers right now is you got to stop the run. And this week is a great opportunity to stop the bleeding when it comes to the run defense, because the offensive line in New England isn't fantastic. And, you know, Ramondre Stevenson's all right, but, like, is he a fantastic, like, dynamic type of running back? Like maybe Breece Hall is and Kenneth Walker when he's healthy can be. I'm not too sure, but the guy that's kind of the slasher kind of prototype that is similar to Breece Hall, that is similar to Kenneth Walker on this Patriots team, is rookie Travion Henderson. And he had some moments where he looked super explosive in the preseason. So you got to keep tabs on Travion Henderson. You got to do some good things in terms of the run defense. And there's certain switches that I would make if I were the Steelers coaching staff to try and make this run defense the best it can possibly be. The first thing that I would do is I would move Y.A. Black, the rookie out of Iowa, to nose tackle. He's over 330 pounds. He's got long arms. He can handle, the 2 gapping assignments. He can handle the double teams. He can handle holding up the line of scrimmage, that role that Keanu Benton is currently asked to fill most of the time in this Steelers defensive scheme. It's just not working out. So, you know, I think Y.A. Black needs to step in there. You can put Keanu on the field in more of like a disruptive type of role, like in the 5-tech spot, or maybe even in the 3-tech spot. But like in the 1-tech spot at nose tackle, it's just not good enough, man. He's getting driven backwards. That can't be allowed to happen in the middle of your run defense structure. And Y.A. Black, I think, is the best suited to replace his spot in that role. Showed some good things in the first 2 weeks as a run defender that I want to see more of. And then also, if Derek Harmon can play in this game, he needs to impress right away, man. Like, he's a big boy, over 310 pounds himself. He was known as a pretty darn good and disruptive run defender at Oregon. And, you know, he might need to be that big-time impact player on the interior of the defensive line right away, coming off an injury for this Steelers defense. If guys like Y.A. Black, Keanu Benton, and others can't pick up the slack in the run defense game. And then also another thing that I think the Steelers should do, and just needs to happen, is Peyton Wilson needs to tighten up big time if he wants to stay in this role as a 3-down starter at inside linebacker. I was super excited to see what he's going to look like in this role. He's got guys like Luke Kuechly and Patrick Queen in his corner saying he looks unbelievable in training camp and stuff like that. And he just comes out and he's just not good at all in run defense in the first 2 weeks. taking poor pursuit angles. He's out of position, abandoning his run fit. It's just not good enough through the first 2 weeks. Now, it certainly doesn't help when your nose tackle's getting pushed into your lap. I'm not saying that makes it easy, but that certainly doesn't excuse all the mistakes that we have seen from Peyton Wilson in the run game to this point. And if he can't get it right, I would put Cole Holcomb out there in early down run situations to replace him. Then we get to the offensive side of the ball, talking about Jaylen Warren. Feed this guy, man. I mean, goodness gracious, this guy had more than half of your offensive production in week 2 versus Seattle. He's an awesome threat as a receiver, like a legitimate receiving threat out of the backfield. Like, he runs good routes, he catches the football, and he's awesome after the catch, man. Phenomenal contact balance, some of the best in the league. Really great cutting ability. He's got phenomenal vision. Whether it's on the ground or whether it's through the air, find ways to get the football in this guy's hands, because I think at this point he's probably the best offensive player on the Steelers' offensive roster right now. Then we get to the idea of getting back to play action. I mean, all 3 of the non-touch pass touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers in week 1 versus the Jets were on play action. There just wasn't enough of that under center work from Rodgers in week 2, in my opinion. There was a lot of shotgun and a lot of empty and all that stuff, and there's a time and place for that stuff, but Arthur Smith and this offense's bread and butter, I think, really needs to come from the play action game. You want to establish that run with Jaylen Warren first, and you want to force these defenses to really bite on that play action fake. There's not a lot of quarterbacks in this league with as good of a play action fake as Aaron Rodgers does, which creates some really big open lanes for Rodgers to exploit. So if Rodgers is looking for more open options, look towards the play action game here and try to get that under center work going early and often and work the play action game off of that. Another thing that I would do if I'm the Steelers here this week is work the slot. And I don't think the Steelers did this enough last week. Now, I think that the Seattle Seahawks did a pretty decent job with their backup replacing Devon Witherspoon in the slot. I think he did a pretty decent job last Sunday, but this week, man, especially if Christian Gonzalez is out of there, like, you guys can really take advantage of that slot position, whether it's Calvin, whether it's Roman, whether it's Jonnu in there. Find creative ways to get people open from the slot position, and find ways to get your tight ends involved in the passing game as well. Pat Freiermuth, catch the damn ball, all right? Calvin Austin III, get open from that slot position. Roman Wilson, get involved, man. Show us that, you deserve to be a part of this offense. So I think that that's probably the area that the Steelers offense should work most towards, especially when they go man coverage. And then the final thing here, guys, is to avoid dumb mistakes, all right? This is what killed the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. All right, if you take away just the really outlier, weird stuff that you're not going to see every week type of mistakes from the Steelers, that 3rd and 19, 3rd and goal run from Kenneth Walker, the weird touchdown given up by Caleb Johnson, and then, of course, the weird interception from Calvin Austin III. I don't expect those 3 kinds of mistakes to happen every single week. And if you take those away, the Steelers might win that football game versus the Seattle Seahawks for as bad as they played for certain stretches in that ball game. So I think that this Steelers team, extremely competitive, and they are a good football team when they are playing the way that they can play. And if you can avoid those mistakes in this game, I think you are more talented than the New England Patriots, and I think there's no excuse for Pittsburgh to lose this game. Is Drake Maye an up-and-coming, really good quarterback? Absolutely. All right, but this offensive line, it's not great. The Steelers pass rush, I mean, they're getting paid what they're getting paid for a reason here, guys, and they need to start proving that they are getting paid what they're getting paid for a reason, all right? They got to be better in run defense. They need to be better blitzing. They need to be better in pass coverage on the back end. They need to be better all around on defense this week, and this is an excellent opportunity to build some confidence, build some chemistry, fix some issues that have been there on the film the first 2 weeks, and get right. And I'm going to pick the Steelers to do just that. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I don't think the Steelers are going to completely dominate this game, but I think that they will gut out a good victory here. 27-21 is the score that I'm going to pick. I think Drake Maye will have multiple touchdowns in this game. I think that the run game, specifically Travion Henderson, will have some success at times, but I do think that we will continue to see improvement from the Steelers defense. And yes, the Steelers defense did improve from week 2 to week 1. It might not feel like it because they lost the football game, but they did get a lot better. Maybe not a lot, but they did get better from week 2 to week 1. Hopefully they take another step forward as a group here this week. Hopefully, guys like Derek Harmon and Joey Porter Jr. can play to help that effort out. But I think that the offense will have a bounce-back game, and I think that they will score 27 points, obviously. I will go 27-21. Steelers win for a big bounce-back victory for the black and gold. So it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the score of Steelers versus Patriots this week. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I got 27-21 Steelers. Let me know your take down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on today's show. I will catch you guys next time. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, so we are done with our segments for the day. We're going to do a last call for raffle tickets here, guys. $5 to get in, $10 to get 3 tickets, $20 to get 10. And if you guys, we'll give you guys about 3 minutes here. We'll give you 3 minutes to get your raffle tickets in if you want. We're raffling off a Steelers Talk hat on today's show, so big shout out to all the people that donated to the show today. But let's talk about some Monday Night Football here, Ponzi. We got 2 games tonight and 2 very, I think, interesting matchups here in this football game or in these football games tonight. We start with the Houston Texans versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, the Bucs played what looks like a very pretty darn good Falcons defense last week, and they were able to overcome in that season opener. And then the Texans, kind of the opposite, were not able to overcome playing against a tough Los Angeles Rams defense. So it is in Houston. So I believe it's the second straight road game for Tampa Bay. What are your thoughts on this game, and who are you taking to win?
I definitely think the Buccaneers will probably win this one. I think the Texans' O-line is a lot more disappointing than I thought. Obviously trading away Larry Tunsil is a huge part of their offensive line. But, I mean...
Just sent you a Venmo, by the way.
Gotcha. But, I think this Bucs team is going to be very good this year. You lose Liam Cohen, but Baker's Baker. So, I feel like, as long as...
CJ.
Yeah, that's true. But I just feel like, as long as the defense is good as it was that first week, I think the Bucs easily win this one.
So, my question here is, with the Bucs pass rush, who do they got that's going to be able to make the light? I think Houston, you can make an argument, is getting a little bit of a break pass rush wise. You got Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick as your 2 starting edges. Now, both those guys are pretty good, but I don't know if they're they're going to wreck the game like Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk do.
Yeah, that's true. I just feel like, the Bucs scheme, they'll always scheme up some pressures. Mm-hmm. And I think, that's the part that's really difficult, especially for C.J. Stroud. Not saying that, the offensive line had no excuses because, they did go against a good Rams defense. But I think, I think the Bucs defense is sneakily underrated. I feel like, Hassan Reddick,
they have a good defense.
They have a good defense. I feel like they got guys that are not really household names yet, and I feel like that's always kind of how the inverse of the Bucs have been. Not show-stopping names on offense, but show-stopping names on defense. But I really do like this Bucs team this year. I think they easily win the NFC South.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that. NFC South is probably the worst division in football outside of Tampa, so they should win that pretty easily. Looks like the Falcons are pretty easily the number 2 team in that division right now. Maybe Carolina's 3, Saints 4. Maybe it's a toss-up for the 4th spot, but I'm going to go with the Texans to win tonight. All right, so I'm going to go with the Texans. I think C.J. Stroud's going to have a hell of a night tonight against Todd Bowles in that defense, and I think DeMeco Ryans' defense is going to have a really good night against Baker and the Bucs. Derek Stingley Jr. I think it does an excellent job. Kamari Lassiter is an awesome football player as well. Jalen Petry's great in that secondary as well. And then they've got some legitimate pass rushers, man. And Tampa Bay does not have Tristan Wirfs, which is a big deal. It's a real big deal not to have Tristan Wirfs against this pass rush from Houston. And they're home. So I'm going to go with Houston to win this football game. I guess we'll see if Ponzi or Sperry was right later on down the road. $20 from Robert Locke. We appreciate you, Rob. Thank you so much. He says, that loss hurt my soul. Yeah, man, it's an early season loss, tough loss, home opener. You want to win, and you want to go to 2-0, but like sometimes, these types of losses, these weird losses, like I feel like people think that only happens to Mike Tomlin, but it doesn't just happen to Mike Tomlin. It happens to everybody where you have these kind of weird outlier plays that sometimes happen where people make mistakes and stuff like that, and it shouldn't happen. But it does sometimes. And unfortunately, the Steelers had 3 of those kind of weird mistakes happen in that football game. And if those 3 mistakes don't happen, and obviously all 3 of those mistakes were the Steelers' fault, but I don't expect those things to be mainstay mistakes that are there all the time. You take those 3 things away, and that's 18 points, an 18-point switch. All right, and even if you just take one of them away, the Caleb Johnson blunder, you have the football with a chance to tie or take the lead at that point. And, of course, that following drive, the Steelers get a field goal. So it would have been a tie game instead of down by 7. And, Seattle would have to score a touchdown to feel secure versus getting a field goal and, feeling good about themselves, right? And, of course, they end up scoring a touchdown on another kind of weird play, allowing a 19-yard touchdown run on a 3rd down and goal from the 19. But, I don't think that we're going to see those mistakes from the Steelers every week, all right? And especially not 3 of them. So when you take that into account and you take that to mean like, hey, this team was competitive with that football team, if you take those things away, I think that shows that, hey, this team can play with anybody even on a bad day, which is what it was. And it's not always going to be that bad, right? I think the run game is going to be better. I think that the play action game is going to be more potent. I think that the defense will play better, hopefully, if they can fix some things. And some very fixable things, Ponzi, like just don't play guys out of position. Like it's just basic fucking coaching. Let's just get it right and get it done. All right?
I saw
not be so fucking stubborn.
On that 3rd down and goal run, it was the longest, I think 18-yard plus or 19-yard plus.
It was the longest 3rd down and goal converted for a touchdown in NFL history. So
for a run.
For a run, yeah. But you think that's going to happen every week?
No.
Even with the Steelers' run defense as bad as it is, that is an outlier play right there. All right, and especially if they can take Peyton Wilson off the field in those types of situations and he doesn't play as stupidly as he did on that play. I think that obviously it was a tough loss in week 2, and it was a game that maybe the Steelers should have been more competitive in. In fact, they definitely should have been more competitive in that game, but I also don't think those mistakes are going to happen all that often. So, I'm not necessarily panicking at this point in the season. But then the second Monday Night Football game here before we do our raffle here, guys, Chargers versus Raiders. I'm really excited for this one here.
I'm excited for this one, too.
Ponzi, because Justin Herbert lit it up against Kansas City's defense, which did a pretty decent job on Philadelphia yesterday. But now that Chargers team going up against the Raiders secondary, that stinks.
Yeah.
But you also get Geno Smith, who was slinging it in week 1 versus the Patriots. I'm going to go with the Chargers to win this one. I just don't think it's a fair matchup. People are going to come away with this game saying, oh, Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert is the better quarterback, by the way, but Geno Smith, I think, is a good quarterback that doesn't get the love that, frankly, he deserves. I would have loved for the Steelers to trade for him this offseason, especially for the price tag the Raiders got him for. The guy completely elevated that Seahawks team. I mean, over the last several seasons, that Seahawks team was terrible. He either had a bottom 3 defense or a bottom 3 O-line or a bottom 3 run game. Every year he was there in Seattle, and he still got them to 9 or 10 wins and led them to the playoffs, right? So, he's a good player. He showed that in week 1, but I think the Chargers defense is a lot better than the Raiders, and I think Justin Herbert is better than Geno Smith. So I will go with Justin Herbert to have another phenomenal evening passing the football, but I think the Raiders will score more points tonight than people expect.
Yeah, no, I have the Chargers too. But, I do think that, Geno Smith could have, a 4 touchdown performance.
Yeah, easy.
And they still lose by, 10.
It's going to be a shootout, for sure.
And, I really think that, not saying this is going to be a litmus test of where the Chargers defense is, but, because obviously they did really good against Kansas City. But, I really do feel the Raiders got some weapons. I think that team is going to be maybe not good this year, but they got a future. If they could really get, GNT a good offensive line, get Geno Smith a good offensive line. I mean, Tyquan Thornton, Jacoby Myers if they extend him.
Did you say Tyquan Thornton? They don't have Thornton on their team.
They don't have Thornton?
No, he's on Kansas City.
What am I thinking of? Tennessee.
Yeah, Dante Thornton.
Dante Thornton, the other one.
the other
My bad.
Thornton.
I knew who I was saying. I just got the other one mixed up.
Yeah.
But Dante Thornton, he's really, really good. He's really fast. But
really big.
And that's the whole thing. It's like, I think that if they develop their pieces, and this could be said with any team, but if they develop their pieces, they got a good core. Geno Smith, you have him a top 10 quarterback, no?
Yeah, I had him at 10 going into the year. I just think that, with some of these other guys, Hurts, Baker, Jared Goff, they don't elevate their teams as much as Geno has consistently over the last 3 years. Now, they're not that far off, but I think Geno is in that class of quarterback. Much better rusher of the football than people give him credit for. Much better playmaker out of structure than people give him credit for. He's got an absolute cannon for an arm, and he's deadly accurate with it. One of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. So, he can make some poor decisions sometimes, but he's generally a pretty decent mental processor. I'm a Geno Pill guy. All right, so that's just who I am. If you disagree, that's perfectly fine. But let's give away. Actually, we got a super chat here from Bernard Nixon. Let's hit that before we do the wheel.
Gotcha. Let me get that up.
Shout out to Bernard. He says, "Do you think they should have kept Russell Wilson?" The answer to that question, Bernard, is hell no. All right. And I say this with all due respect to Russ. I'm happy for the guy that he had an awesome performance against the Cowboys, and all that stuff. Cowboys defense stinks, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there. But
I reviewed the tape today because, we didn't get to watch the game. I didn't get to watch the game.
Bad.
It was bad. Donovan Wilson may have been out of position 5 times in that game.
Yeah, man.
That
defense is not a good defense.
And I feel like, that secondary, there was a play where Trayvon Diggs was playing the flat. Nobody was there. Nobody was there in the flat. Trayvon Diggs let Malik Neighbors go by instead of picking him up, and Malik Neighbors scored a touchdown. And it's genuinely mind-boggling because they have good pieces in their secondary. That's where they're supposed to be the strongest at. I get DeRon Bland's out, but they looked terrible. So I'm not really thinking Russell Wilson cooked in that game. I'm thinking the Cowboys defense was terrible.
All I know, Bernard, is I'm good friends with our Giants host here, Marshall Green. He wishes he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback right now. And he was very adamant that he wanted Rodgers during free agency. We end up getting him. They end up getting Russ. And listen, man, I like Russ as a guy. I think he's got a really good heart. And I think what he does for charity work and all the stuff that he does is great. I still think he's a starting level quarterback, by the way. He can still throw the deep ball. If you put a perfect surrounding cast around Russ, you can have a very successful football team. And he's still very clutch. He showed that. Well, I guess he threw the interception in overtime, but he had that crazy touchdown to Malik Neighbors with regulation closing. Of course, Brandon Aubrey is Brandon Aubrey and kept him alive. But, I think Russell Wilson is somebody that struggles past his first read, and I think Aaron Rodgers is somebody that's excellent past his first read, can still see over the middle of the field. I think he's done a really good job of that so far here in Pittsburgh, and, there's more types of throws that Rodgers can still make compared to Russ. I think his pocket presence is better than Russ, and, I wish Russ all the best of luck, but, we talked about this ad nauseum in our free agency coverage. Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't take as many sacks. He gets rid of the football a lot faster. He's a much smarter quarterback, with all due respect to Russ, who's a smart quarterback in his own right in certain areas. But, if it's past his first read, Russ just panics and it's not there, and it's not ugly. We saw that at the end of last season. But I don't think that the Steelers gave him the proper tools. I think that the deal that the Steelers made with Russ Ponzi was you come in here, and all you have to do is not turn the football over, throw a great deep ball, and perform in the clutch when the game is close. And I think that he, for the most part, held up his end of the bargain. What didn't hold up their end of the bargain was the Steelers. They promised him a run game. They promised him a passing game with multiple weapons to throw to. They didn't give him either of those things. then the defense completely crumbled. Like, Russ was expecting to go in there, have a nice run game like he had in Seattle, multiple weapons like he had in Seattle, and then a great defense like he had in Seattle. Like, he was hoping to recreate the Legion of Boom days where he won a Super Bowl in the league. And if the Steelers would have given him that kind of supporting cast, I think there would have been a chance. Steelers would have had a shot. But, like, the Steelers got to a point where they were depending on Russ to carry them, and he's not that quarterback anymore. That's why he will fail in New York. They don't have enough talent there to support his skill set at this point, unfortunately, and that probably means that's the end of his career as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers is still very much a good starting quarterback in this league based on the way he's played the last 2 weeks, in my opinion. All right, so let's spin the wheel here and let's give away a hat.
Here we go.
And then let's get out of here. The first game starting in 20 minutes here. I was trying to get home by 6 o'clock, but it looks like that's not going to happen.
Hey!
So it's going to be Esteban. He may not love Mike Tomlin, but hopefully he loves the Steelers. I have his Venmo, so I will get in touch with Esteban. Big shout out to you, Esteban. If you want to send me your shipping address on Venmo, otherwise I'll get in touch with you. But big shout out to Esteban for the $5 super chat. By the way, Esteban just had one ticket in the wheel, all right, and he won. So if you only have one ticket, this just goes to show you have a chance to win. He had two.
Venmo.
Oh, that's right, because he sent in a Venmo. So Esteban only had 2 slots, and he ended up winning the hat. So Esteban Flores is our winner today. Shout out to you, Esteban. I will get in touch with you to get you your Steelers Talk hat. That's going to be it for today's show, guys. I'm going to go get our news and rumors cut out and then go home and watch some Monday Night Football, if you don't mind. So from me and Ponzi, thank you guys so much for joining us here on this Monday afternoon. Next time we'll be live is Thursday, normal time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And, of course, we'll go live on Sunday for the live watch party for Week 3. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, here we go, Steelers.